Next season, this orchestra will be performing concerts on classic series. There's a subscription series on Sunday afternoons, a subscription series on Tuesday evenings. Some of those we refer to as doubles because we do the same program on Sunday and Tuesday, specifically the programs that involve Beethoven symphonies. That way everyone can have their sort of bucket list approach. In addition to the classical series concerts, we offer our pop series, which is, I think, very exciting and we'll talk about coming up. We have a Discovery concert series. These are concerts for the young and the young at heart. We are not telling you the details of the Discovery concert series today, nor are we announcing the details of the Magic of Christmas, but know that both of those things are happening, of course. The 36th anniversary of the Magic of Christmas, our 3 Discovery concerts next year, and I'll ask Norman Nguyen, our assistant conductor, to talk a little bit about those as well. So this is the beginning of information about really the core of our season, our classic season primarily, and also our pop season for next season. We're going to open the season next year with one of the doubles. This will be for Sunday subscribers and Tuesday subscribers. We are doing this because it worked to be able to present a Beethoven symphony on the fall concert in October. And I have to say, standing here on this day, after a snow cancellation, I'm pretty sure we won't have to cancel October 11th or October 13th. Please let me be right, that there's no freak blizzard snowstorm at that point. We felt there was, we enjoyed great success in kicking off this past season with a large choral orchestral work and also a work that featured organ very prominently. That was by design specifically to launch our 90th anniversary season, also to welcome back the Kaczmar organ after a 2-year absence, came back to be part of our community. Something somewhat similar this year. The Beethoven Symphony to be played as part of the cycle is the first symphony of Beethoven. I have often quipped that you might call Beethoven Symphonies number 1 and number 2 Mozart Symphony 42 and 43. They fall much more into the archetype of the great and perfectly constructed classical symphony that really follow the tradition and transition of Mozart. By the time we get to the third symphony, the one many of you will hear tomorrow night, we begin to very clearly hear a Beethoven who, due to his own hearing loss and due to his own genius, begins to do something that is literally world-changing. He moves us from the classical to the Romantic era. But these first 2 symphonies are just brilliant in their composition and so enjoyable. You'll get one of them each in the next 2 seasons, and we kick off next season with the first symphony of Beethoven. So you get to go back to the very beginning of his symphonic composition. To open the concert, we open with one of the most rousing and joyful and enjoyable overtures in all of the repertoire, Dvorak's Carnival Overture. I've conducted that here with the orchestra before, but we wanted to make sure that we had a sense. Beethoven early symphonies are fairly small orchestration, that is to say, smaller number of people on the stage playing, and we have a larger number of members of the orchestra than that symphony calls for, so we have a chance to open the season with a much larger body of the orchestral members on stage playing. As one side note, the first piece I conducted really as a conductor in my life was the Dvorak Carnival Overture. I did it my senior year of college with my undergrad college orchestra called the Furman University Symphony. So this piece has been sort of particularly dear to me ever since then. Beethoven, and then we end with the Berlioz Te Deum. The Te Deum of Berlioz is at one level something like the Berlioz Requiem, only it is just a little bit shorter in length and it calls for a fewer players. Nonetheless, you will see the stage occupied with pretty much everything but the kitchen sink. It's a very large orchestra and it has an incredibly prominent role for the organ. So it gives us a chance to do what many orchestras cannot do in this country, program works that have a large organ component. We can do so because of the Kaczmar. And I've said this on many occasions. St. Louis has the arch and Seattle has the needle. We have the Kaczmar organ, and we should be mighty proud of that and musically use it as often as it makes sense for us. And As you see, I program to connect it to the Kochmar quite a lot. The Choral Arts Society will be with us singing, and the Berlioz Te Deum calls for chorus, children's chorus, orchestra, organ. The children's chorus is the Boston Children's Chorus. We're working with them. They'll be coming up to join us. They joined us for the Bernstein Kaddish Symphony a few years ago, so that wonderful group will be coming back. And then Berlioz asked, he wrote the work originally for soprano solo, but he also wrote at the time, this could be performed by either soprano or tenor solo, and we are in the process, finalizing the process, of engaging a really top-tier tenor soloist, perfect for Berlioz repertory to sing with us. So that is the opening concert, and boy, oh boy, does that concert start the season with a bang. So very excited about that. The next classical concert cycle happens in November, and this is one of the collaborations about which I am the most excited. We are interested in collaborating with other arts organizations and also other non-arts organizations, which we've done in past years to make a concert cycle all the more interesting to a larger swath of the entire community. This year, for example, we're doing something we've never done before. We're doing a semi-staged opera. We're doing the Poulenc Dialogues of the Carmelites, just coming up 3 weeks from yesterday. Since we feel and believe that this is going to be a most exciting experience, I can tell you it will be, but 3 weeks are coming. We know it's going to be a very exciting and powerful experience. We wanted to research doing this with other forms. Opera this year, ballet next year. This concert, the genesis of this concert happened early last summer when the head of Portland Ballet met with us and asked if we would consider making a joint venture for a ballet on classics. They mentioned to us that they knew that 2015 was the 150th anniversary of Alice in Wonderland. And they said, we don't know if there's any music that exists for Alice in Wonderland, but we thought we'd mention that to you. And I said, well, actually, have you heard of the composer David Del Tredici? David Del Tredici, one of the great composers, he's still living, really of the era of composers of David Diamond and Leonard Bernstein. And Del Tredici, tremendous composer, who in the late 1960s, early 1970s, seemingly became obsessed with the story of Alice in Wonderland. And he wrote a ream of material connected to Alice. And there are all sorts of works by Del Tredici connected to this story. Some of them have names like First Alice and Final Alice and Middle Alice. But eventually he took this mammoth, I mean hundreds upon hundreds of minutes of music, and he arranged them in one setting that I thought would work really well for us. He arranged them into this piece called An Alice Symphony. It's in 4 movements. I think the most famous music from all of his Alice output is something called the Lobster Quadrille. I thought Lobster Quadrille was really quite nice for Portland. The Lobster Quadrille is part of this experience. So what will happen on the concert is that we will open the concert with the orchestra on stage, playing a symphony of Haydn, Haydn number 69, the Laudon Symphony. Laudon, there was a General Laudon who was quite the war hero at this moment in the Habsburg Empire. And for a long time, I think people believed that Franz Joseph Haydn wrote this symphony in great homage to Laudon. Truth is, his publishers actually gave it the title the Laudon Symphony, and Haydn wasn't really writing the music in honor of this person specifically, but agreed to the title because, as his publishers told him, it would make you a little bit more money in sales of the piece. So he did. But it's a phenomenal classical work. If you don't know the Haydn symphonies in the 50s, 60s, 70s, these numbers of his symphonies, there are some gems, brilliant, brilliant symphonies. And so we're going to play that one to open. A great sort of clean, cleansing, perfect, pristine classical work to precede a lot of music that is anything but. We go from that to a different type of story to tell, Prokofiev's Cinderella. Again, a composer taking a fictional story and making an incredible ballet from it. You're going to hear the orchestra play this piece. It will not be choreographed. Some of the most incredible music in my thinking, especially a segment called At the Ball and Midnight. So when the clock strikes midnight in the Cinderella story, what Prokofiev does with this musically is just phenomenal. So we'll play for you music from Cinderella. Then after intermission, Portland Ballet joins us. We give them 12 feet downstage, close to the audience, and they choreograph with us the Alice Symphony. Also calls for a soprano who serves as a narrator as well, so you will be well informed of the story and how this certainly 1970s modern music of Del Tredici connects to the idea of Alice. So we're very excited about this. I'm so glad that Jeannie called us over for a meeting at Portland Ballet early this past summer, because that's what made this concert happen. So the next classical to happen after that will be just a few weeks later. That was a Tuesday night classical. This is a Sunday classical in November. This has a overall more traditional approach. I mean, we're really enjoying being out of the box a little bit with the Alice Symphony that I told you about. In this case, we open with a work by a living composer. Her name is Cynthia Wong. And Cynthia Wong, just to give you a sense how programs come together, I learned of Cynthia Wong from our principal violist, Lori Kennedy. Lori told me, it's over a year ago, she said, I have this person who, she rented a room from a friend of mine in New York, and she's a composer, and boy, she writes really great music. You should take a look. We found out that Cynthia Wong had been commissioned by the San Francisco Symphony and the New World Symphony, both not uncoincidentally conducted by Michael Tilson Thomas. That Michael Tilson Thomas had commissioned Cynthia to write a piece called Carnival Fever. And so the first performance is in San Francisco and the New World Symphony. We get the third performance. So this is near unto a premiere of this work. And then following Carnival Fever, the Brahms Second Piano Concerto. In some ways, I think of the Brahms First and Second Piano Concertos almost as symphonies in their own right. They're incredibly symphonic in the way they are written. And William Wolfram is one of the known interpreters of Brahms at the highest of levels. So you are in for, if he has not been here before, or if you have not heard him before, you're in for a treat at the kind of level of mature interpretation of Brahms that befits this concerto. He plays the second concerto, and then after intermission, we play Stravinsky's Petrushka. Petrushka, one of the great orchestral scores, and again, thinking about how concerts come together. For the past few years, we've been gathering the orchestra and doing an orchestra repertory brainstorming idea. We put a flip chart at the front of the room, and people just call out ideas. And just to get a sense of what people are interested in, I don't think any piece of music has been named more often in the past couple of years as a suggestion from members of the orchestra than Petrushka of Stravinsky. For many of you probably know this. If you don't, Stravinsky really moved to front and center of the world stage as a composer because of three operas that he wrote in 1910, 1911, 1913. The Firebird Ballet, the last one was the Rite of Spring, and in between the two, he wrote Petrushka. Petrushka is something of a Russian puppet tale. Petrushka is almost a Russian Pinocchio, someone who gets into sort of adventures, and you move through the fair and the marketplace where Petrushka moves, and the music is simply phenomenal. Someone asked Michael the other day at a Q&A if composers ever revise their works. Said, will you ever hear a piece of yours and then do you go back and change anything? And Michael said, yes. Sometimes he puts it away for a few years and comes back to it. Michael is not the only composer to have done this. Stravinsky wrote Petrushka in 1911. He made further revisions in the early 1920s, and he made what I think of as a very strong revision in 1947. So that's why you see the year in that case, because composers do go back and think, well, maybe I'll change a little bit here, or I'll change the way I mark the meter here, or something like that. So that is the final classics of the fall season. After that, Thanksgiving comes, and then after that comes the magic of Christmas, just so you know. Moving on into the beginning of the year 2016, this is a concert when we think about the repertory and we think about the guest artist, about which I am nigh unto ecstatic. I am so excited. Let's talk about the repertory first. This will become the 5th of the 9 Beethoven symphonies that people will be able to hear. In this case, it's the 8th symphony, so his penultimate symphony, and a work that sometimes gets lost in the sort of power and popularity of Beethoven's symphonies number 6, 7, and 9, or I could say 5, 6, 7, and 9, but 8 is such a phenomenal symphony. So we open with that. And I had been thinking for a long time about a concept that I wanted to take on really for at least 15 years. I should tell you that from 1999 to 2002, I worked at the Santa Fe Opera in New Mexico. And at that time, the founder of Santa Fe Opera was a man named John Crosby, who was dedicated to that opera company performing a Strauss opera every single summer. So I got to enjoy some Strauss operas that I didn't know so well. I know Rosenkavalier, I know Salome, but there were other ones that were just phenomenal. And in conversations with Maestro Crosby, he said, you know, orchestras always play the tone poems. You played Don Juan and Don Quixote and also Sprach Zarathustra, but there's much great music of Strauss, which comes from the operas that we don't hear as much played in orchestral form. And he gave me several scores to take a look at. And from that conversation evolved to the rest of the program you see here. It's going to behave, after intermission, more like one work. We'll pause between, but think of that not as 4 different settings of Strauss, but think of it as really one great arc of the music of Richard Strauss. Opening with the prelude to Act 1 of Guntram, which is the first opera Strauss ever wrote. Such powerful music. Moving to the love scene, the finale of Feuersnot. Incredible, and pity that it's not known so well, opera of Strauss. And finishing with a very popular work of Strauss, The Dance of the Seven Veils from Salome, moving into the approximate 17-minute final scene of Salome. If you know the story of Salome, if you know the biblical story, this is the story. Oscar Wilde made the libretto for Richard Strauss for this opera, and the story is Salome, the daughter of King Herod, who asked for the head of John the Baptist on a platter. If you recall that story. So, in this case, we do the Dance of the Seven Veils, and then we needed a soprano to join us for the final scene. I thought we might shoot for the sun, moon, and stars and try and get one of the world's most famous sopranos to sing with us. I didn't know if we had a chance. We got her. Patricia Racette is, I think people think of Renee Fleming, and rightfully so, as the most famous superstar soprano. After Renee Fleming, if you were to name the 3, 4, 5 greatest sopranos living, singing today, Pat Racette is always in that list. And we are, if you're not an opera fan, I can tell you that if you were an orchestra fan, this would be like having a picture of Hilary Hahn there and saying, we got Hilary Hahn to play a violin concerto. It's that big of a deal, and boy, am I excited. So this is the program, Beethoven 8, and then incredible music of Richard Strauss. Can you tell that I'm a little bit excited about this one? And that's a double, so both Sunday and Tuesday subscribers get to enjoy that. The next concert coming up after this will move from an 8th Symphony of Beethoven to a 3rd Piano Concerto of Sergei Rachmaninoff. We haven't done the 3rd since I've been here. We've done the 2nd Piano Concerto. We've done Rhapsody on a Theme of Paganini. Pianists often discuss this work, the Rachmaninoff 3rd, and say, was this the most difficult work in all of the piano repertory? If you saw the movie Shine, you would be moved to believe that that is the case, to be sure. It's certainly a demanding work and requires a certain type of player to handle the intricacies and the octaves, beyond octaves, and the power of this work. Andrew van Ooyen has been with us before. He played Prokofiev Third Piano Concerto about 5 years ago. He's a great friend of mine. The name would make you believe he might be from Holland or something. He's actually a kid from California. He's kind of grew up as a surfer dude in California. But he does now live in both Europe and the United States. And he lives in Paris and LA, and is really one of the most sought-after pianists working today. So it's very exciting to bring Andrew back to play the Rock Third. We're going to open the concert. We'll finish this concert with a concerto, which we do from time to time, and this will be the one time this year to do that. The first half of the concert will be an incredible short work of Shostakovich, his second jazz suite. If you're an audiophile, you may have seen this work also listed in your CD collection as Suite for Variety Orchestra. So if you're looking this up for a recording, you might look for Suite for Variety Orchestra, but it's also known as the Jazz Suite number 2, and the title, you should infer from the title correctly that you'll have a certain kind of wonderful Shostakovich take on jazz in this piece. And because of the nature of that work, it led me to thinking again about one of my favorite composers, Kurt Weill. We're doing Kurt Weill's Seven Deadly Sins here in just about a month and a half with the Portland Symphony. So this next year we'll have a work by Weill as well, and this is the suite from the Threepenny Opera. Kurt Weill sort of lived in two incarnations. He lived from the first part of his life until 1933, very much as a German composer and sort of connected to the Berlin cabaret scene. And he had many famous collaborations with Bertolt Brecht at that point. This is that Kurt Weill. Sort of imagine sort of the cabaret effect of Berlin and that influence upon his music. If you're thinking about the popular world, yes, the song Mach der Messer in German, or Mach the Knife in English, is part of this suite. So if you have sudden memories or sudden thoughts of Bobby Darin singing, that's okay. You may imagine that as well as you're hearing this, but it's really part of a much larger, important part of Weill's life. Just to say briefly, it's not part of this, but just so you know, after that, 1933, Weill moved to America. He died in 1950, but those last 17 years of his life, the compositional output is quite different. It really becomes much more American, wanting to somewhere in that nether region between Broadway of the 1940s and an approach to try and write the first great American opera. So Weill's a very interesting character to listen to, I think. One of my favorite composers. I worked for the Kurt Weill Foundation for a few years when I was just finishing the Eastman School of Music. And so they've given me permission to do something. We will play the suite, which actually does not include the finale of the opera. And I think the music from the finale is the perfect ending. So they've given me permission to include an additional 4 minutes. So in addition to the suite that you might hear on a recording, we're also adding the finale of that, which is very powerful music. And then Rock Third. So that's a Sunday only. That's the Sunday in March. Following that, our next concert is the concert that, it's the one concert next season on our classic series for which we have a guest conductor. The guest conductor is a quite well-known musician, pianist, and conductor in Europe. He is a traveling concert artist himself, and he is also the conductor of, among other places, the Vienna Chamber Orchestra. He's coming to us from Vienna, Austria. He'll be conducting an opening work which he and I are still working on. So there'll be one more work on this program before the Hindemith. So there'll be an orchestral opening. And then after that, the Hindemith Horn Concerto featuring our own principal horn, John Bowden. I'm very excited about this. We try to feature at least one, if not more, of our own players every year in solo or group solo positions. This past year, you got to hear a large number of our players play the Martin Concerto for 7 winds, timpani, and orchestra. So we had a huge group of our principal players all joined together to be featured. And this coming spring, we also have a concert in which our concertmaster, Charles Dimmick, will be featured, playing the Bartók Violin Concerto. Next year, our principal horn, John Bowden, just one of our tremendous players playing the Hindemith. John tells me that he played the Hindemith in one of his early years as principal horn. So this is a really nice seeing how a great musician sort of grows and changes their interpretation of a piece. And we both thought that would be a great idea. And then we programmed the Tchaikovsky Fifth Symphony to finish the concert. And the Tchaikovsky Fifth Symphony has an extremely prominent horn solo. So I had to make sure that John and I spoke, and I said, are you okay playing the Hindemith Concerto in the first half, then playing principal horn in the second half? And he said, I wouldn't miss it, of course. He said, if you're going to program the Tchaik 5, I'm going to play it on the second half. So I think that'll be fun for you all to see him play a concerto and then move back to the principal horn seat for the second half of the concert. That is the final single Tuesday concert. Notice that's for Tuesday subscribers. And then we move forward to the next concert, which is the double, which is, that's not the final Tuesday. There's one after that. This is the final double performance. It's on May the 1st and May the 3rd. Sunday, May the 1st, Tuesday, May the 3rd. I have a little bit of a Vienna thing going here. This one, I want to tell you about Christoph Kontz before I tell you about the program. So I'm a fan of watching orchestras on videos, on YouTube videos. If I'm curious to see how a conductor chooses to conduct a certain piece of music, what an interpretation. I like to watch the orchestras and see what the strings choose to do for bowings. This is something conductors have to be quite involved with, deciding and working with the principal string players as to bowings. So I was doing this, getting ready for the Beethoven symphonies. I was watching the Vienna Philharmonic on a video play Beethoven's Sixth Symphony. The conductor is one of the most prominent living conductors. His name is Christian Thielemann. There was the Vienna Philharmonic. They are sort of famously, infamously, almost entirely male. That's changing finally. They now have about 11 female players, and they are also somewhat of let's just say many of them are well over 40 years old. Yeah, play. So what caught my attention on this video is that the principal second violinist looked like he was 15 years old. Yeah, he looked like he was a teenager. And I thought, who is this guy? There's this very young guy. And I also noticed that he plays in the videos from memory. He never looks at his music stand, which as a conductor, you love this. He's constantly just playing, making music with the conductor, with his colleagues. So I just did a little Google research. I found out his name was Christoph Kontz. And if you type in this name on Google, before Vienna Philharmonic, you often see that he was a star in a movie when he was 9 years old. If you saw the movie The Red Violin, if you recall in the movie The Red Violin, there's at one point the violin is in the hands of an Austrian orphanage. And this little 9-year-old Austrian orphan is a prodigy, and he plays the violin. He ends up playing with a metronome, and he plays this one Bach etude faster and faster and faster until the metronome is finally just moving as fast as it can. This is Christoph Kontz. So he had that moment of 9-year-old stardom, but it turns out he is one of the finest violinists I've ever heard. He comes, by the way, from a very strong musical family. He's principal second violin of the Vienna Philharmonic. His brother Stefan Kontz is a cellist in the Berlin Philharmonic. His parents must be so just saddened at how poorly they did. So he's coming. He and I have played a few concertos together. Oh, the end of that story is I became friends with him by Facebooking him. So sometimes stalking someone on Facebook works. So we have become friends. He's played a few violin concertos with me with different orchestras around the country, and we're very excited to get him here. He recommended the Korngold Violin Concerto because Korngold is an Austrian composer and also an American composer. Eric Korngold came to the United States and really made his mark on the world writing for the big swashbuckling movies of the 1930s. All of the Errol Flynn type movies. Some great movies, by the way, that featured stars like Bette Davis. And this violin concerto, the music is compiled and used in some great movies from that era. So Christoph thought, he's an Austrian violinist coming to America to play, why not feature Korngold? So the composer with a similar story. He'll play that, and then after that, finally, the Beethoven number 5. So we finished the second year of the Beethoven 3-year cycle with the most famous 4 notes in all of music. Pa-pa-pa-pam, if you weren't sure which 4 notes I was talking about. I think that's going to be a really powerful concert and just a lot of fun. I think a lot of great ancillary activities we might enjoy, maybe some screenings of the Red Violin and some other things like that during that time. This is not the end of the season. We have one more concert after this, and this comes in June. And this concert, I can tell you that a patron in the community is a huge fan of Norwegian music and spurred on the idea that we research great Norwegian music and find that as a thread of connection. And we really found some brilliant music that did this. When you think Norwegian music, when you think Norwegian composers, the first composer to come to mind is Edvard Grieg. We played the piano concerto this past year, and we're going to play for you to finish the season the other music of Grieg, famous as the piano concerto, and that's his music from Peer Gynt Suite. If you don't think you know the music from Peer Gynt Suite, I promise you, you do. At least if you have ever seen any Bugs Bunny cartoon, I promise you, you do. You know this music. It's really quite phenomenal. Everything from the morning song of Peer Gynt to In the Hall of the Mountain King, which featured prominently on the movies Fantasia. Stokowski really did quite a lot to promote that music. So it's a brilliant way to sort of enjoy June in the concert hall, enjoy springtime in music. Grieg was easy. Then finding the rest of the program became a very interesting journey. First, I knew of one living Norwegian composer. I actually know him personally a bit, a man named Ola Gjello. Ola is in his 30s, I think. In the world of choral music, Ola is one of the most well-known names. After, say, Martin Lauridsen and Eric Whittaker, Ola Gjello is now writing with that kind of popularity in the world. And so that's how I knew of him and I had met him. I contacted Ola and I said, what do you have for orchestral music? He said, well, I have a really wonderful wind symphony I wrote. I didn't write it for strings, but I wrote a wonderful wind piece called Meridian. And he said, I think it might be, you might enjoy it. He sent me a recording. I love the piece. And I went back to Ola and I said, what if, could we get you to orchestrate this? We'll sort of commission it, make it an orchestration, and we will do the premiere of the full orchestral version of Meridian. Ola said, I would love to, but I'm fully booked on commissions until 2017, so I can't do it before then. To which I said, well, you know, many instances where a composer has written a great work and another composer has orchestrated it. Think Mussorgsky Pictures at an Exhibition, orchestrated by Ravel. I said, if we found another composer to orchestrate it, would you be comfortable with that? He said, as long as I get a chance to see some of that composer's works and feel good about them, sure. The end of the story is that he was very excited about the music written by Del Case. Del Case is from Maine. Del Case now teaches down in the Boston area, but his family is very connected to the Portland Symphony. He wrote a piece that we have played many times, including this past year on the Magic of Christmas, called Rocket Sleigh. That's how we open the concert. So Del Case is going to orchestrate Meridian. So I'm very excited about that. It has a great Maine connection. It's a chance for us to do a unique kind of premiere. Then after that, there's a 19th century composer, Sinding, who was in more fashion, I think, a half century ago than now. For a few key works, a piano concerto, and we were first leaning to doing the Sinding piano concerto, and then our concertmaster, Charles Dimmick, said, well, what about the violin suite? And I said, what violin suite? And he pulled out his phone and his music, and he said, well, I have a recording right here. And he played it, and it's a phenomenal work. It's a real Paganini-Vinyavski-esque showpiece for the violin. It's just one of these that violin fireworks from the very beginning. It's a somewhat short, it's not a full concerto, it's a little shorter in length than that, but a chance to really showcase the violin. And I'm looking a little bit at Carolyn Nishon, our artistic administrator, because we are just in the final stages of negotiation with a Norwegian violinist to play this for us. So we're very close, but I don't want to say the name out loud. Just, never say a name out loud until the contract is signed. But we're very close on that decision. So Norwegian composers, Norwegian violinist, South Carolinian conductor, but otherwise, really it's a great thread of connection to music of Norway. Those are the concerts on Sunday and Tuesday, or a combination thereof, for the classics for 2015-16. I hope those concerts excite you. 1, 2, 3, all. I hope that you find them exciting. Let me tell you about the Pops concert. This will take less Pops concert series. This will take less time, and then I want you to meet one of our players from the orchestra. So the Pops series opens with a tribute to John Denver, and I was just skiing in Colorado a couple weeks ago, and there's a place, if you drive up I-70, you can see a house once owned by John Denver. One of the great and important folk and country and pop voices of the 1970s especially. The person who's put this program together is Mike Eldred, who is known to us. Mike has performed with us before. He's a bona fide Broadway star. He was Jean Valjean in Les Miserables on Broadway, and this music, I think, is just perfect for him. Norman Quinn, our assistant conductor, will lead that program and also the final Pops program, and I'll get Norman to give you some of his thoughts about that in just a moment. After the opening Pops, tribute to John Denver, comes our second Pops, which is a tribute to the Beach Boys and to one specific album, Pet Sounds. Now, if you're a Beach Boys fan, it's crazy to say this out loud, but this is 2016 is the 50th anniversary of Pet Sounds. That's just wrong. It's just wrong. It doesn't make any sense that album is that old. But it's the 50th anniversary of one of the most popular albums of all time. And if you're thinking, I don't remember the tunes on Pet Sounds, yes, you do. Just go give a look. You'll know every single tune on that album. And Jeff Reed is a prominent Pops conductor who travels with a small band of singers and players who join with the orchestra. And Jeff is creating this show just for us for next year. So I'm sure he'll take it to other orchestras as well. But we got very excited when we noticed the anniversary of Pet Sounds. So that's the second Pops in January. And then the third Pops will happen on Valentine's weekend, just almost exactly 1 year from this, from right now. And on this Valentine's, I'll be conducting this Pops, and we will have a couple of singers with us, and it will be all Valentine love tunes, popular tunes, connected sort of to the world of either Broadway or pop music or Gershwin and Porter or any of the great American tunes. This is a concert we call a homegrown in the office, which means I'm creating this program. It's not, sometimes on a Pops program, you purchase a program and someone brings it to you. But we're having a lot of fun right now deciding on the best singers and the best repertory for this program. Perfect Valentine's night. And then the final Pops, we haven't done this since my first season here. We're returning to the music of John Williams. We get no request on the pop side of things more than requests for John Williams music. And this will be a great year to do this because, I don't know if you all know, but on December the 18th, Star Wars Episode 7 comes out at the movie theaters. We have two Magic of Christmas performances that day, and the number of us whom I think at midnight will be going to see the opening Star Wars show. I know of a few of us for sure. Joey will be for sure. I will be. So we thought that because there's going to be so much hype and hoopla about Star Wars next December that we should really capitalize on that energy and return to Star Wars. This is the fourth Pops cycle concert of our four, and Norman is conducting this, and actually you see a photo of Norman conducting a Star Wars themed concert on Discovery concert just a year ago. Let's hear from one of our members of the orchestra, because I think that perspective is extremely important. One of, I think, the greatest, not just players in the orchestra, but persons who clearly have demonstrated since, as long as I've known you, a real dedication to the entirety of the orchestra, to its community, to its impact on the community, to its high level of artistry, to its way of involving as many people as possible in being part of this PSO family, and that's our horn player, Nina Allen Miller. So welcome, Nina.
Can you hear me okay? I don't need to go to the podium. I have a lot of hot air, so I've been told. Well, thank you. I'm very, very pleased to be here and to be asked to speak. And when I was asked to speak to you today, it was suggested that I talk about what I was looking forward to with next season and what I'm most excited about, what pieces I can't wait to do. And I thought about it, and I thought, that's a really hard question to answer. It's like asking a parent, who's your favorite child? You know, you love them all, but you love them in different ways, and you're excited about different things. Actually, in the case of picking children, I only have one, so that's an easy answer. He's still my favorite. So I thought what I would do, instead of just telling you what I'm excited about, I want to tell you a little bit about the institutional memory that I have of the orchestra, where we were when I started and where we are now. All right, so I joined the orchestra in September of 1976. Wow. And I can't believe a year before that, Vietnam War ended. And when I put it in that kind of perspective, it's just amazing to me how long ago it was. I was 5. Let's just get that. I was 5, you know, prodigy on the horn, but I joined the orchestra in '76. We were paid $14 a 3-hour service. Now, for those of you who don't understand service language, rehearsal and concert are considered services. $14, they were 3 hours. And it was the same year that Bruce Hangen joined the orchestra. I auditioned for him, I got the job. He came the same time, and the way I described the symphony in '76 was it was a community orchestra with ringers. And for those of you who don't know the lingo of what a ringer is, those are people who come in to sort of fill in important roles for a concert and then leave. And then we kind of play again, and then we have a concert and they come in. So community orchestra with ringers. Well, over Bruce's 10-year tenure, he developed that orchestra into a fully professional orchestra, which is an amazing feat in 10 years. So by the time he left and handed the baton to Toshi, we had an orchestra where we were all ringers, which was an amazing feat over 10 years. So then Toshi came in, and Toshi continued the growth of the orchestra. We were a professional orchestra. He maintained that and developed the orchestra. He made changes when we needed to have changes made. He also continued to be a very elegant and graceful presence on the podium. We had some rough times during those years, and those of you who were with us in the 80s and the 90s know. There were some really, really scary times. He pulled us through, the staff pulled us through, the community pulled us through, and after 20 years, when he left, he handed the baton over to Robert. And how I consider that transition is explosive, is really the word that I use for it. We've exploded musically, we've exploded in terms of the repertoire, what we're offering. But one of the biggest areas we've exploded is in bringing new life into the orchestra, into the community. When I say into the orchestra, into concerts, a younger audience, maybe people who haven't been, cultural, different audience than we've had before. So it just amazes me to see in the 6, 7 years that you've been here how vibrant we've become, how much a part of the community we are. One thing that's happened to me in my almost 39 years in the orchestra that I've realized, also being a resident of Portland, is how proud our great greater Portland area is of our orchestra. Even if they've never been to a concert, everyone knows there's an orchestra in Portland. I could go to anywhere, any area, and say, do you know that there's Portland Symphony Orchestra? And they would go, yeah. They may not have heard us, but they know of us, and they're very proud. And you've really taken the reins in bringing those people who maybe have never had experience in the orchestral environment, and just have really run with it. So I just want to say we are so fortunate to have such a vibrancy. A couple of things I want to mention is that no one does this alone. We have an amazing staff, which were probably most of them not born the year that I started in the orchestra, which is a scary thought. And we have an amazing board of trustees who are so supportive and work so hard and tirelessly for the success of the orchestra. And I served 3 years as the orchestra representative to the Board of Trustees up until last spring. And I saw how hard they work. And they do it, you know, volunteer, and they spend hours and hours. And that's a reason we are so successful. So I just want to tell you how appreciative the orchestra is, the musicians are, that there is that support. And one other thing, I'm not going to keep you long, and I have a lesson I have to teach it too, so. That I have friends all over the country, I have friends all over the world who play in orchestras. And I hear a lot of what goes on. And it doesn't take much to see that orchestras in this country especially are going on strike, are being locked out, are going bankrupt, are folding. And it's a very sad state of situation about American orchestras especially, and it's very painful to see that happen. But in this city, we are so healthy, and we're so vibrant, and we are so respected that it is a testament to everyone in this city and everyone involved in the orchestra, and very, very rare. So just want to let you know how unusual this is. Also want to let you know how much we really do, the orchestra does appreciate. I know you don't always get to see us. You see us on stage, of course, wearing our black and everything. But, you know, we're together a lot, like our family. It is a family. And we talk about how grateful we are to be in this situation. So thank you all, really, for that. Also, if anyone has any questions or, you know, always something you always wanted to know about a musician or horn players or whatever, yeah, we do have strong lips. Especially for the Beethoven cycle. So I just want to thank you all for being here. Really, that's all I just wanted to